Welcome to Paranormal Files. I'm your host, Zoe Parker, and in today's episode, we enter a world where the air itself seems to shift and unseen hands brush against the skin. For centuries, people have reported sudden drops in temperature, icy chills crawling across their arms, and the unmistakable sense of being watched. These cold spots have been described in haunted castles, forgotten asylums, and ordinary homes alike. Are they the breath of spirits, or a strange effect of nature we have yet to understand? Tonight, we pull back the veil on the mystery of ghostly chills and the energy that might create them. The concept of cold spots has been tied to hauntings for generations, but the belief goes deeper than modern ghost stories. In ancient folklore from cultures around the world, sudden drops in temperature were often seen as signs of supernatural presence. In medieval Europe, the chill of death was thought to accompany the soul as it departed the body. In many Asian traditions, a cold wind was believed to signal the passage of a restless spirit. These ideas persisted into the age of spiritualism in the 1800s, when séance rooms were said to grow cold just before a ghost made itself known. Early spiritualists believed that spirits needed to draw energy from their surroundings in order to manifest, and that cold was the physical evidence of this transfer. One of the most iconic haunted locations associated with cold spots is England's Borley Rectory. Known as the most haunted house in Britain, visitors throughout the early 20th century reported walking through pockets of freezing air, even during the summer months. In one account, a woman claimed that she passed through an icy column in the middle of the hallway that vanished as quickly as it appeared. The temperature around her returned to normal, but the sensation of being watched remained long after. Similar claims have been made in Eastern State Penitentiary in Pennsylvania, where tourists often describe a sudden coldness near cell block 12, followed by an oppressive heaviness in the air. In both locations, temperature drops seem to appear without warning and disappear just as quickly. The phenomenon is not restricted to well-known sites. Homeowners in quiet neighborhoods have also described rooms where the air feels inexplicably colder than the rest of the house, even when windows and vents are closed. Some believe these spaces act as energetic traps, locations where spiritual energy lingers, unable to dissipate. Others suggest these cold pockets are formed by electromagnetic disturbances linked to the presence of spirits. The idea that something unseen can affect the physical environment in such a direct way is what makes the phenomenon so unsettling. Cold spots have also been documented during paranormal investigations using infrared thermometers and thermal imaging cameras. While some skeptics argue that drafts or poor insulation explain these anomalies, investigators counter that the drops often occur in interior spaces with stable temperatures, far from vents or openings. In some cases, the temperature may plummet by 10 degrees in a matter of seconds, only to return to normal immediately after a sensed presence disappears. This strange behavior, witnessed across countless reports, keeps the debate alive. Whether these temperature shifts are caused by faulty construction, electromagnetic interference, or the presence of entities beyond our understanding, they remain one of the most common and compelling features of reported hauntings. One of the earliest modern cases to bring cold spots into the public eye occurred during the 1973 investigation of the Whaley House in San Diego, California. Often referred to as one of the most haunted houses in America, the Whaley House had a long and violent history. It was once a family residence, courthouse, and even the site of public hangings. Paranormal researchers reported dramatic temperature drops while moving from room to room, especially near the stairwell, where visitors claimed to see the ghost of a young girl. One investigator described standing in a patch of air that felt at least 15 degrees colder than the surrounding hallway, despite there being no airflow or vents nearby. Instruments confirmed the drop, but the source remained unexplainable. In 1987, a similar case unfolded in York, England, inside the famous Treasurer's House. A young plumber named Harry Martindale was working alone in the basement when he was suddenly overwhelmed by a blast of cold air. He froze in place as the temperature around him dropped sharply. Moments later, he witnessed an entire Roman legion marching silently through the wall. The soldiers appeared waist-deep, as though the current floor had been built above an ancient road. His report became one of the most famous ghost sightings in British history, and investigators who followed up years later noted a persistent coldness in the exact area where the vision occurred. Private residences have also provided some of the most chilling cold spot stories. In 1991, a family living in the suburbs of Chicago contacted local investigators after experiencing what they called moving cold zones throughout their house. The family reported waking up to freezing air in their bedrooms, only to find the rest of the house warm and unchanged. Thermometers showed sudden drops of more than 10 degrees in isolated pockets. Even more disturbing, one of the children claimed to see a shadowy figure standing in the corner of his room each time the cold settled in. The family eventually moved out, but the new occupants reported the same phenomenon within weeks. Cold spot encounters are often paired with other paranormal activity: phantom footsteps, disembodied voices, or strange electrical disturbances. In a Virginia bed and breakfast built in the 1800s, guests began reporting a frigid area near the foot of their beds. Many said they awoke at exactly 3 o'clock in the morning, unable to move, with the sensation of ice pressing down on their chests. One guest described it as breathing cold death. The owners initially dismissed the claims until a visiting researcher recorded a temperature drop of 20 degrees within seconds, followed by a sharp spike in electromagnetic readings. These first-hand reports, spanning decades and continents, suggest that cold spots are not isolated to one culture or region. They are part of a recurring pattern of human experience, a reaction to something invisible but powerful. Whether observed in ancient castles or suburban basements, the sudden appearance of unnatural cold continues to terrify and intrigue those who encounter it. The consistency of these reports across time and location has turned cold spots into a foundational element of paranormal investigation. Paranormal investigators have long tried to validate cold spots using tools meant to bring measurable data to an elusive phenomenon. As early as the 1970s, ghost hunters began using handheld thermometers and analog barometers to document temperature shifts in allegedly haunted locations. These early devices offered crude readings, but they laid the groundwork for modern ghost hunting techniques. In the decades that followed, teams began using digital infrared thermometers, data loggers, and thermal imaging cameras. These tools allowed researchers to visualize temperature fluctuations in real time and correlate those changes with reported experiences. One of the most cited cases in paranormal research took place at the Queen Mary, a retired ocean liner now docked in Long Beach, California. The ship is considered one of the most haunted places in the world, and investigators have returned to it dozens of times to study its anomalies. In the ship's engine room, investigators repeatedly recorded dramatic drops in temperature with no clear environmental explanation. Using thermal imaging, one team captured a distinct blue silhouette near the watertight door where a young sailor was reportedly crushed to death decades earlier. The shape lasted less than 10 seconds before fading completely, but the ambient temperature in that space dropped more than 15 degrees in that short span. Another well-documented investigation occurred in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, on the site of one of the bloodiest battles of the American Civil War. Paranormal teams, including members of the Atlantic Paranormal Society, brought highly sensitive thermal cameras to Little Round Top, a hotspot for reported activity. In several sessions, they observed sudden cold signatures moving across open fields where no living person was present. The images showed distinct outlines resembling human forms, often moving against the wind. Simultaneously, electromagnetic field detectors spiked, and audio recorders captured faint, whispering voices. Despite these compelling findings, skeptics argue that many cold spot readings result from human error, faulty equipment, or poor understanding of airflow. Investigators counter by pointing to repeated experiments conducted in sealed, climate-controlled rooms. In one such experiment conducted in a decommissioned hospital wing, a team set up multiple temperature sensors across a narrow hallway. All readings held steady for hours until Just before 3 in the morning, one sensor showed a sudden drop of 20 degrees. The temperature returned to normal within 60 seconds. There were no open vents, drafts, or changes in humidity. Motion sensors in the hallway showed no signs of activity, and video footage revealed nothing visible. The drop occurred exactly where a nurse claimed to have felt a hand touch her shoulder during a previous investigation. Some researchers suggest that cold spots may be associated with disruptions in the natural electromagnetic field of a location. Paranormal teams often document these disruptions using electromagnetic field detectors, which frequently spike during sudden temperature changes. While mainstream science has not confirmed a link between these fields and human perception of cold, the correlation remains consistent enough to raise questions. Though science demands repeatable, measurable evidence, the complexity of paranormal environments makes controlled replication nearly impossible. But even among skeptics, there is growing interest in the patterns being documented. Whether these cold spots are the product of residual energy, intelligent spirits, or something we do not yet understand, the fact remains that they continue to appear under strangely similar conditions, time and time again. Theories attempting to explain cold spots fall into two major camps: those rooted in the paranormal and those grounded in scientific skepticism. Both offer compelling ideas, but neither has fully explained why these temperature drops happen when and where they do. Paranormal theories often suggest that cold spots occur when a spirit draws energy from the environment to manifest. According to this view, spirits do not create heat like living beings do. Instead, they consume ambient energy, electrical, thermal, or emotional, to fuel their presence. This theory aligns with reports of electronic malfunctions, battery drains, and spikes in electromagnetic activity occurring alongside cold spots. Ghost hunters frequently report cameras dying suddenly or audio recorders malfunctioning just as the cold air sets in. Some believe this energy transfer is what makes the presence of a ghost physically detectable to humans. Another spiritual interpretation comes from residual hauntings. In these cases, cold spots are believed to be part of a loop in time, an emotional imprint left behind after a traumatic event. The theory proposes that this residual energy can replay certain moments like a recording. As this energy stirs, it may affect the physical environment by dropping the temperature, especially if the event was tied to death, despair, or intense grief. These spots of atmospheric cold, according to this view, are like footprints left in the fabric of space. There are also more metaphysical ideas rooted in ancient belief systems. In some Eastern traditions, for instance, the body's spiritual energy is said to emit warmth when balanced and healthy. In contrast, places of spiritual imbalance, what some call thin places or negative energy zones, are described as unnaturally cold. This echoes indigenous beliefs across different continents, from the Sami of Northern Europe to the Native American tribes of the American Southwest, who associate cold winds with the movement of spirits or unseen forces. These cross-cultural parallels add depth to the mystery and suggest the experience of ghostly cold has ancient roots. Skeptical theories focus on environmental explanations. One of the most common is that cold spots are caused by hidden air currents, drafts, or insulation flaws. In old buildings, temperature can vary wildly between rooms due to differences in window seals, ceiling height, and construction materials. Heating systems can push warm air unevenly, and many older homes have unexplained drafts that modern thermometers are sensitive enough to detect. Another proposed explanation involves psychological suggestion. If people enter a space already primed to expect ghostly activity, they may perceive subtle changes in temperature as more dramatic than they are. This expectation bias can cause the brain to overinterpret physical sensations, especially in dimly lit or silent environments. Additionally, the mere act of standing still in a room for a prolonged period can cause a person to feel cooler, particularly in hands and extremities. Some argue that this simple shift in body temperature is then interpreted as a cold spot, especially during ghost hunts. Despite these rational theories, not all cases are so easily dismissed. Researchers have documented cold spots that defy airflow patterns, structural logic, and psychological explanation. In these cases, Even skeptics admit that the phenomenon warrants deeper investigation. Whether caused by spirits or subtle shifts in the unseen forces around us, cold spots remain one of the most persistently unexplained and chilling elements of paranormal encounters. In recent years, advances in consumer technology have brought cold spot phenomena into the hands of the public. With the rise of ghost hunting apps, portable thermal cameras, and affordable environmental sensors, average people are now documenting unexplained cold zones in their homes, workplaces, and outdoor locations. TikTok and YouTube have become unexpected platforms for showcasing these encounters, where short videos of temperature readings, breath clouds in sealed rooms, and eerie thermal silhouettes have racked up millions of views. While many of these clips are dismissed as hoaxes or misunderstood readings, others have sparked serious interest among viewers, some of whom begin their own investigations as a result. One particularly compelling video posted in 2023 showed a couple exploring a 19th century farmhouse in Kentucky. The video, captured with a thermal imaging phone attachment, revealed a clear pocket of cold air floating just behind the woman as she walked down a hallway. She shivered visibly and mentioned feeling watched, unaware of the visual anomaly captured in real time. In the comments, other users reported experiencing similar sensations in older homes, especially in rooms with heavy emotional energy or strange family histories. Whether the video was authentic or not, it tapped into a growing public fascination with energy anomalies and invisible forces. Professional investigators have continued their work as well. In 2021, a research group in Scotland conducted a week-long thermal sweep of Glamis Castle, one of the most haunted locations in the British Isles. They deployed over 50 temperature sensors throughout the estate, focusing on rooms with known reports of apparitions and spiritual encounters. One night, shortly after midnight, multiple sensors in the North Wing recorded sudden temperature drops of more than 15 degrees within less than 60 seconds. No environmental cause was found. Simultaneously, several team members reported nausea, dizziness, and pressure around their temples, symptoms often associated with strong electromagnetic disturbances. These findings were published in an independent journal focused on fringe science, and while not peer-reviewed, they were meticulously documented. Modern psychics and energy healers have also contributed to the conversation. Some claim that cold spots are not just passive areas of absence, but active zones of spiritual presence. According to their beliefs, spirits often congregate in specific energy fields, and these points may feel colder because they are vibrating at a different energetic frequency. In this framework, the coldness is not merely the absence of heat, it is the presence of something outside normal human perception. Paranormal investigators who subscribe to this view often use dowsing rods, pendulums, and energy mapping techniques to identify the energetic geometry of a haunted space. Cold spots, they claim, often appear where these energy lines intersect, so-called spiritual crossroads. At the same time, engineers and scientists remain skeptical of these interpretations. Controlled experiments in modern buildings have shown that minor fluctuations in temperature are more common than people think. Smart home systems often measure changes of 1 to 3 degrees, depending on time of day, appliance usage, or even the number of people in a room. These microclimates can produce sensations of cold or warmth that feel significant, even when they are not paranormal in origin. Yet even with these explanations, the accounts that continue to emerge, those recorded in real time, under controlled conditions with no obvious natural cause, continue to blur the line between environmental science and spiritual mystery. The cold remains, both on the sensor and on the skin. Beyond the physical sensations and thermal readings, cold spots have had a profound psychological and cultural impact. For many, the sudden presence of unnatural cold becomes a deeply personal experience, one that lingers in memory long after the moment passes. Survivors of such encounters often describe a visceral fear, a sense that the cold is not just environmental, but invasive. It feels targeted, intelligent, and aware. Whether these reactions stem from primal instinct or supernatural origin, the emotional weight of the experience is undeniable. In communities with strong oral traditions, stories of cold spots are often passed down alongside tales of haunted fields, cursed houses, or spirit-infested roads. In the Appalachian Mountains, elders speak of spirit winds that move silently through hollows, chilling the bones of those who cross their path. In Irish folklore, a sudden chill might be a fairy warning or the approach of a banshee. In all these tales, cold is more than temperature. It is a signal, a message from the unseen. Cold spots also play a prominent role in the way ghost stories are framed in popular media. From movies like The Sixth Sense to paranormal investigation shows, the presence of a chill is one of the first signs that something is wrong. It signals to both characters and viewers that a boundary is being crossed, that a line between the physical and the spiritual is being breached. This visual and sensory shorthand has made cold spots synonymous with ghostly presence, and as a result, audiences have been trained to associate sudden cold with danger, mystery, and the paranormal. Psychologically, the human body responds strongly to environmental changes, especially when they contradict expectations. Our brains are finely tuned to detect discomfort and a sudden drop in temperature, particularly in the absence of a known source, can trigger a fight or flight response. This heightened state of alertness often amplifies other sensations, making people more aware of creaking floorboards, flickering lights, or distant whispers. Whether the cold is truly supernatural or not, it can open the door for a cascade of fear responses, reinforcing the belief that something otherworldly is near. In haunted tourism and paranormal tourism industries, cold spots are often highlighted as a key feature of a location's supernatural appeal. Guests at haunted hotels or ghost tours are encouraged to pay attention to sudden chills, even if they occur in summer heat. Some guides carry thermometers and EMF meters, inviting guests to experience the thrill of scientific validation. In this way, cold spots have become a ritualized part of the modern ghost experience, both for believers and skeptics alike. But perhaps the most significant cultural effect is internal. People who experience unexplained cold often feel changed by it. They may question their beliefs, reevaluate their understanding of reality, or become more open to the possibility that something exists beyond the physical world. For some, the chill is terrifying. For others, it is confirmation. But for nearly all who feel it, the memory remains vivid and unresolved. The cold is more than sensation. It is a threshold. And once you have felt it, the question is no longer whether spirits exist, but whether you have been touched by one. As we trace the arc of this phenomenon across time, geography, and experience, a striking pattern begins to emerge. Though each account of a cold spot is unique in setting and circumstance, the underlying characteristics remain eerily consistent. The temperature drop is often sudden, extreme, and confined to a specific location. It frequently occurs without any physical explanation. No open windows, no drafts, no ventilation systems. The chill typically lasts less than a minute, yet it leaves an impression far deeper than its duration would suggest. And most importantly, the sensation of being watched, followed, or even touched often accompanies it. In the historical cases, like the apparitions at Borley Rectory or the spectral legion in the Treasurer's House, the cold seemed to herald the arrival of something beyond comprehension. These were not just fluctuations in air temperature, but moments where the veil appeared to thin, where people reported a brush with the unknown. Decades later, the same characteristics appear in thermal footage from a Kentucky farmhouse or digital logs from a Scottish castle. Even when the environments change, the essence of the experience remains unshaken. The interplay between cold spots and electronic disturbances adds another layer of complexity. Again and again, witnesses describe battery drain, camera malfunctions, or audio distortion during the cold event. And when this evidence is reviewed, it often shows corresponding drops in temperature and spikes in electromagnetic activity. These are not abstract ideas. They are tangible data points, often documented by people with no prior interest in the paranormal. This consistency across countless cases suggests a common cause, though the nature of that cause remains elusive. From a psychological standpoint, these moments tap into some of humanity's most ancient fears: the unknown, the unseen, the unnatural, but they also awaken something deeper, an intuitive sense that we are not alone. Cold, in this context, becomes a sensory bridge between worlds, a physical indicator of an invisible presence. When a person steps into one of these pockets of freezing air, they are not just reacting to discomfort. They are reacting to the sudden realization that their reality may not be as solid, as explainable as they once believed. This is why cold spots occupy such a central role in paranormal experiences. They do not require belief in ghosts, demons, or spirits. They are felt physically and undeniably. And when they coincide with apparitions, shadows, or voices, they become impossible to ignore. Whether the cause is electromagnetic interference, subconscious expectation, or the presence of something truly beyond our comprehension, the sensation itself is real. It lingers. It changes people. These are the details that keep ghost hunters returning to the same haunted spaces. These are the clues that push researchers to develop more sensitive instruments. These are the moments that, over time, form a collective archive of the unexplained. From forgotten hallways to open fields, from ancient temples to suburban bedrooms, the cold finds its way in, and it never arrives alone. If the reports and research are to be taken seriously, and many would argue they should be, then cold spots may be more than a symptom of paranormal activity. They may be part of its structure. What if these icy pockets are not merely a sign that something has arrived, but a doorway through which it does? That idea has been explored by a growing number of researchers who believe that cold spots may indicate localized breaches in the energy field of a space. In this theory, the boundaries between the physical world and some other realm weaken, allowing a temporary interaction between dimensions. This opens the door to more speculative questions. If a cold spot marks a breach, what determines where and when it opens? Could emotional trauma, geological stress, or spiritual residue be the cause? Some investigators have proposed that stone or water-rich environments may store and discharge energy in unpredictable ways, triggering cold spots as the ambient field resets. Others suggest that certain locations act as natural antennas for paranormal energy, their unique combinations of minerals, structure, and history making them ideal for these strange intrusions. Then there is the theory that consciousness itself may play a role. In experiments with psychic mediums and energy-sensitive individuals, cold spots have been reported to form around participants as they enter trance-like states. This has led to the idea that human emotion or intention may be capable of shaping or amplifying these phenomena. It would mean that some cold spots are not only the result of spiritual activity, but also the product of human interaction with the unknown. Taking it even further, there are those who ask whether cold spots are symptoms or messages. Could a sudden chill be a form of communication, a language without words? Some survivors of near-death experiences have described the feeling of a freezing presence as they hovered between life and death. In their accounts, the cold is not frightening but purposeful, something that signals a threshold, a choice, or an awareness on the other side. And what if, as some suggest, these cold zones are not about ghosts at all? What if they are environmental clues of a deeper mystery, glitches in the fabric of space and time? Theories of quantum entanglement and multidimensional existence have long danced at the edges of mainstream science. If consciousness or energy can move between dimensions, perhaps cold spots are side effects of these transitions. Perhaps the chill we feel is the echo of something far larger than a spirit or memory. Perhaps it is the ripple of another world pressing briefly into ours. None of these theories can be proven. But the consistency of the accounts, the precision of the temperature drops, and the emotional weight carried by those who experience them all suggest that cold spots are not accidents. They are patterns. And in the study of the unknown, patterns are the first hint that we are not dealing with random chaos, but with something that follows rules. Rules we have yet to understand. In the end, cold spots remain one of the most quietly unsettling aspects of paranormal experience. They arrive without warning. They linger just long enough to leave an impression. And when they vanish, they take nothing but warmth and certainty with them. For many who have felt them, even once, the world never feels quite the same again. The environment becomes suspect. Stillness becomes suspicious. The air itself becomes a question. We often look to the paranormal for spectacle, for apparitions, voices, moving objects. But cold spots are different. They are subtle, almost polite in the way they appear, yet they speak volumes without sound. They intrude on our most basic physical senses, disrupting the invisible layer of warmth we assume will always surround us. That's what makes them so powerful. You cannot see a cold spot, you can only feel it. And in that moment, you're forced to confront the reality that something unseen has entered your space. To dismiss them as drafts or illusions is easy. It is safe, but it fails to account for the countless moments that defy those explanations. Places sealed tight, yet split by invisible lines of frost. Instruments detecting sudden drops in environments otherwise stable. Experiences shared by people with no belief in ghosts. People who were caught off guard by a change in temperature so sharp it left them shaken. The truth may be simple, or it may be far stranger than we can imagine. Perhaps cold spots are the breath of the dead, or perhaps they are the aftershock of invisible forces brushing too close. Maybe they are warnings, maybe invitations, or maybe they are the natural byproduct of a universe whose rules we do not yet fully understand. What we know is this: the phenomenon persists. It repeats. It returns. Haunted places continue to reveal their invisible guests not with footsteps or voices, but with a silence pierced by cold. A presence that speaks through temperature. A reminder that warmth is not guaranteed, and the air around us is never truly empty. Thanks for listening. This has been Paranormal Files. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow us wherever you get your podcasts. And if you'd like to support the show, gain access to bonus content, and unlock our entire library of video podcasts, subscribe to the Forbidden Knowledge Network on Patreon. Subscribe now.